Welcome. It's the top of the hour, so let's get started. Thank you for attending today's Get to Know Your Organic Acids and Total Toxic Burden Labs. I am Mary Beth Augustine, clinical lead here at Vibrant America, and I will act as your moderator. I will respond to the live chat and Q&A throughout the presentation, and following the presentation, we've allowed approximately 15 minutes for live Q&A. Attendees are in listening mode, so please submit your questions in the virtual Q&A or chat applications. As a reminder, the content of this webinar is for educational and informational purposes. The information is not to be interpreted as or mistaken for clinical advice. Please consult a medical professional or healthcare provider for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And now let me introduce you to today's presenter, Greer McGuinness, who is a clinical lab educator here at Vibrant America. Greer McGuinness is a registered dietitian and certified detox specialist. Greer obtained her master's in nutritional science from Central Michigan University and is a published researcher. Greer specializes in herbal medicine, food sensitivities, gut health, and detoxification. She also specializes in pediatrics with a focus on functional medicine with autism and ADHD. A New York native, Greer enjoys spending time with her family, researching, baking, and enjoying the outdoors. Now I'll turn it over to Greer. Take it away, Greer.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our test launch walkthrough. We'll get to know your new total tox burden and organic acids test. I'm so happy you guys are all here with me for this amazing lunch and learn. And I'm hoping that you guys are going to be super excited with what I'm going to show you. So let's dive in. So this is webinar 3 objectives. This is the final webinar of a 3-part series. We're going to be showcasing the new total tox exposure questionnaire that we have developed, the total tox burden layout report, understanding how we're using NHANES in our reference ranges now. We're going to be highlighting some of the new report comments that are going to be added to a lot of our new testing. I'm going to show you some of the new organic acid report layout, and I'm also going to give you a sneak peek of our new environmental toxin guide that's coming out too. So again, we've been coming out with a lot of stuff, and we've been handing you guys over a lot of amazing information over the past few weeks. So I'm super excited about all of this. Now, if you missed webinar 1 and webinar 2, don't worry. We have them in our portal. So you log into your Vibrant Education portal. You can research. Usually it's under this one's under the environmental toxin panel. It's also on YouTube. You can have access to the slides and the handouts that we have that we've created over the past few weeks for all of you as well. So very exciting to continuously be presenting you guys with more and new research for you guys. And again, if you want to go back and rewatch webinar 1 and 2, you can. And this is part 3. So just to recap what we've kind of created for you guys over the past couple weeks, if you haven't been online with us, was the toxic exposure questionnaire form. This is around a 3-page questionnaire that you could give to your patients. And it not only helps you and them kind of come together and figure out where their toxic exposure might be lying, it can be very eye-opening for your patient. So definitely use this tool if you're using the Total Tox bundle packages for your patients where you need to identify if there's potential problems. That's also in our portal. We have created the mycotoxin-specific binding agents. So again, when we talked about mycotoxins, not all mycotoxins bind to the same binding agent. So this little chart cheat sheet is going to help you that when you do get your reports back and you're trying to identify what is going to work best for your patient due to the labs and the levels that have come back, you could pull this chart up and very easily find the common binding agents that are going to work for either just some or all of your patients' mycotoxin exposure. We also have the detoxification support nutraceutical guide. Okay, so now this is going to be specific with vendors. So it'll have specific vendor names, plus the name of their supplements and ingredients. So if your patient is maybe intolerant to certain ingredients, you could quickly find something else that could work maybe from a different vendor. And this is very helpful when we're trying to do detoxification support systems to the human body, opening up those drainage pathways, opening up the liver and the kidney support. So definitely take a look at all of these detoxification and guides that we have created for you guys. I think they're going to be great assets for you guys to use in your practice. And as we spoke a lot about, don't forget to stand for your patients. We want to support our patients and take real good history, support them both physically and emotionally. Remember, they're coming to us because nobody else is listening to them. They're trying to find out what's wrong, and we need to really focus in and hone in on what the issues are. Definitely understand what testing are available. We have an array of testing lists that we can be providing for you guys, so you know what is out there, and you can always contact us also if you have a patient and you're not really sure what kind of testing to offer for them. After we do the testing, we want to make sure avoidance is always key. This is where that educational and support piece comes in for your patient. We want to avoid any of those toxins and foods that are impacting their health. We want to provide them with the adequate nutrition. Maybe they need a specific diet. Maybe they're not getting enough fiber. Maybe they're not getting enough something else. So make sure the nutrition aspect is sound for your patients as well, so that they are getting enough that they could fight off whatever they're dealing with. And then lastly, detoxification. We want to make sure that the supplements that they're being provided and how we're going to be rebalancing their system is adequate. And that's also where some of the handouts are going to come in to help with that detoxification, those binding agents and getting things out of their system. So as always, just remember to stand for your patients and make sure that we get a good, solid start for them. Oops, sorry, a little too far. So this is our new test layout. So I did give a sneak peek at our last webinar, and I just want to explain that we've heard and we have been working really hard. We know providers had a lot of input on this, so we do definitely listen to feedback. We do love hearing the things that you guys are saying or suggestions that you have for testing and lab reporting and how to make and improve our technology or improve the way that our reports are laid out. So we definitely heard you. We've been working really, really hard for the past 2 months on putting all those thoughts and all that energy into making a better test layout so that it makes sense not only for you, for us, but also for your patients. Now, we're going to be talking about interpreting the reference ranges, but I just want to bring attention to the fact that we do have on all of our testing a little blurb that does explain. So if you listen to me today and it's a couple weeks from now and you go, oh, what did she say? What did this mean? This is always on the test. So you could pull this up, read through it, and it actually shows you and explains the reference ranges. I'm going to go a little bit into further detail with our reference ranges, but if you ever have questions or you need a quick refresher, it is here in the test handout. So after you get your patient's report, you could pull it up and read through that little piece, and it'll definitely tell you how we're actually interpreting the data. Okay, so this is an example of our new test layout. I'm just pulling one piece out and I'm going to show you how it looks all together, but I wanted to just bring one piece out and highlight what one piece is. So the first one is you're going to have the test name. So whether this is any type of environmental toxins, heavy metals, or mycotoxin. This is a specific mycotoxin. Okay, so this is Roridin A. You're going to have a current result. So anything here, this is what your patient tested at. That was the level that their range came out with in the analytes results. Okay. You will see that we'll have 2 different markers. We will have a darker blue little teardrop that indicates the current result. So many times people do repeat lab tests. So if we do repeat the lab test, you will see that there will be another teardrop blue, but it will be more faded. Okay, so if there was a previous result, there would be a comparison. This is not a previous result comparison. This is just a first time result. Then we have the reference range. Okay, so this is no different than our previous test where we do have a specific reference range. It's just showing you where the reference range is. And that is typically anything that will always be anything above the 95th percentile in the red. Okay, so anytime you see the reference range, it is referring to the red zone, anything above 95%. Anything below the green, so green and below, is actually going to be 75%. Okay, then between the green and the yellow is your 75th to 95th percentile. So when we're looking at this and we're trying to interpret data, the moderate to high risk will be between your yellow and your red range. Now, there is a lot of education where professionals and doctors are explaining that we don't want anything above the 95th percentile because that puts you at the highest risk. However, that 75 to 95th percentile can still be very problematic. So this is where you would use your own clinical judgment that when, and I'll show you some examples that if somebody is in the yellow range, this is where we would start to consider a moderate potential at risk. Anything in the red would definitely be at the highest risk, over 95th percentile. So this would be what a summary page would essentially look like. Okay, so you can definitely see what we will have are new symbol markers. So for instance, this would be the marker for mycotoxin. So any type of mold or mycotoxin exposure will have one group of markers. Your heavy metals will have another group of symbol markers, and as well as your environmental toxins will have their own set of markers. So you could, in your summary report, look at this and actually identify, wow, my patient's got a lot more mold than I expected, because you can just look at the markers too if you don't know the names quite yet. So the symbols are going to help you identify a little bit more right off the bat, instead of you having to go down, look and say, oh, what was that? Where did that come from? Is that an environmental toxin? Is that a mold marker? Because sometimes with new providers, we're still learning. So we made it a little bit easier to just identify on the summary page. Now with the summary page, we also have two different pages where we will write a high marker. So anything above that 95th percentile in that red. So that will be on one sheet. And then on another, we will have our median or suboptimal ranges. That would be anywhere between our 75th percentile to 95th percentile, indicating potential risk or potential elevation of those specific toxins. So keep that in mind, that there will be two different versions where you would have a high risk and then a moderate risk level. So I talked about at the beginning that we are incorporating NHANES. Now, the National Report on Human Exposure and to Environmental Chemicals is a series of ongoing assessments of the U.S. population. Okay, this is for the exposure to environmental chemicals using something called biomonitoring. So the reports here that we're presenting also have national representation of cumulative biomonitoring between 1999 and 2000, plus from 2017 to 2018. Now, the report provides information using individuals of different types of pooled blood and urine samples. So the samples are from people who took part in the CDC National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, which is the NHANES. And this is what helps us to create those reference ranges for testing. Now, we do not unfortunately have NHANES testing for everything. Okay. But the ones that we do have, I have indicated on this chart here for heavy metals. So if we do have the NHANES ranges, we have used them in our testing. For those that we don't have NHANES testing for, what we have done, and it's also explained in that little blurb that I showed that was going to be on everybody's test report, is that we have sampled over 1,000 healthy individuals, and that is how we had quantified our reference ranges for these particular ranges. The ones that we don't have NHANES for, we have quantified and had figured our own reference ranges for those data. As NHANES comes out with more information, we will then update our report to include any new NHANES research study that is out there. Now, this was what our old test looked like. Okay. And I'm sure everyone is probably quite familiar with the amount of times I've done presentations on heavy metals, but this is a heavy metal report of what it used to look like. Now, if you've ever consulted with me, you know I am a stickler for heavy metals. I go through things with a fine-tooth comb because what it does look like, the person does have a lot of heavy metals, but when we kind of glaze over or pass over the green, it makes it look like there isn't a problem, there isn't an issue. When in fact, if we looked closer, we could see that this particular person had two markers that were relatively high, one almost triggering for aluminum, and one probably in that high 75th percentile range that would have triggered as a potential moderate level of an issue. So that's where the new testing comes into play, which really helps us out. We have that reference range. Again, anything over 95% is for that reference range, but it also gives us that moderate range. So for this particular person, I can look through and say, wow, you were really high in arsenic, you were really high in tellurium, you were really high in thallium, over the 95th percentile, and cesium too. But you also have a problem with aluminum. You also have a problem with mercury and tin, and even bismuth. Like if we looking, it's barely over into that 75th percentile range. That could potentially still be a problem. So this helps us kind of find a better danger zone for our patients. So sometimes things don't look dangerous, but they could be hiding. So this gives us another extra layer of actually interpreting the data and saying, I think we have a bigger problem than what we're just honestly thinking and seeing. Now, with the heavy metal testing, we never had report comments on it. We had an interpretation guide that was very well done, that it gave you a lot, and then we still have the guide in our portal, but it gave you where these types of metals were found, some interventions, but we never had comments. Well, now we're going to have comments, guys. So now you're going to have comments on the report for not only you, but also your patients to read through, to understand a little bit more about the particular metal, where it could be coming from, and what are the potential causes and issues that could be happening to your patient. And that could help start putting that clinical picture together and starting to go, wow, maybe this might not be the root cause, and maybe it is the root cause, but it gives you another layer to kind of say, this could potentially be why you're feeling like this. So very exciting for these lab comments, because I think it's going to help a lot of patients. Now, the environmental toxin NHANES actually has a lot of analytes. I was actually shocked when I saw this. So we test for 39 analytes on our reports, and NHANES has 31 reference ranges for them. Who knew? So now we have, again, incorporated these NHANES reference ranges into our environmental toxin panel. So again, this is what our environmental toxin panel used to look like. You would only just see the red and the yellow. And then those moderates, maybe high greens or lows were kind of overlooked. So again, we get to see in depth a little bit more where somebody falls in that potential risk. So if you look, you can actually see down at the bottom under phthalates, this person is at the high end of green, indicating that there could be a potential issue, because once we know that they're in the system, when there's some, there's more. So anytime we're dealing with any type of toxins, we definitely want to see where we're at. And if there's going to be a little bit more, it probably is. So if we were not provoking this particular patient, or they were not on any type of binders, and then all of a sudden we did put them on binders, then we would know that there's probably a lot more toxins in their system that just didn't come out. So this could be really good at helping us to identify where those potential areas lie. And those scary mycotoxins, I love my mycotoxins, and I'm very excited for this one too, because with this, mycotoxins for me, especially when you're looking at a mold sick patient, they could potentially have something that is making them really sick. And, it's hard because mycotoxins hide in our fat cells. Remember, I told you they hide in our adipose tissue. So if we are only getting a small glimpse of what's actually in their system, we might not be able to see the whole picture. So now we can actually see they could be in the low green, meaning, okay, that's not terrible, or the high greens. And then high greens to high yellows, indicating that this is probably a problem or an underlining problem, and we need to dive in deeper and look at this. So again, another layer of care, another area that I absolutely love. And I think these tests really do a better job for us to help us identify that clinical picture of what is going on with our patients. And we are still testing for creatinine. Okay, so I just want everybody to be aware that there is still a creatinine level. It will, again, look a little bit different. It does have just that high and low set of reference ranges to help us identify if there's any type of kidney issue or renal insufficiency. So this could be a potential issue if our patient is maybe very dehydrated or having chronic kidney disease. It can actually influence the results. So that's why it is important to identify that your patient is within their reference range for creatinine, so that the test results reflect the accuracy of what we're testing for. I have had patients that have had extremely high creatinine levels, and then the provider actually caught it through the test, and they wound up having kidney disease. And that was very helpful, because we definitely don't want to start detoxing if somebody has extremely high levels of creatinine and their kidney function is not working properly. So, and finally, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of snippets of our organic acids. So everybody, I'm sure, knows that we have the Krebs cycle on our organic acids test report. We are giving it a little bit of a shape up over here. We're fixing it a little bit. It's going to have some really cool different features on here. You're going to be able to see a little bit more of the nutrient cofactors. We have not decided if we're keeping this green or not. We're not sure if we like the color or if we want to change it a little bit, but we're definitely trying to finalize this piece, which is really important to a lot of us. So we're definitely going to have those nutrient cofactors, so you can actually see if there is an issue with your patient, not converting pyruvic acid into acetyl-CoA into the citric acid cycle. Could it be because they're having a nutrient deficiency? So we're definitely looking into making sure that all of these are there and available so that you guys can make the best clinical judgment for your patients as well. Now, one of the biggest discrepancies that we had was on our old testing, we had a very interesting reference range where it was only green, yellow, and red. So if something was low, it would actually be in the red, and it was very confusing. So what we did was we said, we want to change everything to quintile reporting. We want to make sure that the green zone is in the middle, the moderate to high and low is on the outside, and then the red is on the outer side, meaning that is your biggest danger piece over that 95th percentile kind of thing. So we did that on the citric acid cycle as well, so that we're able to actually see where the person is, if they are too low or if they're too high. So again, another clinical, this was actually coming from providers that said it was very difficult. I think I have some suggestions, and that's what we took into consideration, and we agreed with them. So this was another change that we did. We also continued to still put the heavy metal interference in here as well. Heavy metals can definitely interfere with the citric acid cycle. So that is also displayed here so that you can tell if there is an issue, and we do a total tox package panel, we could see if heavy metals could be playing a role in there. Now, we are still going to be testing for all the normal thing. We are looking at the Krebs cycle, fatty acids, ketones, mitochondrial, all of the nutrient markers, Clostridia, yeast, fungal. We have not removed any of that from the testing. All of that is staying the same. What we added a little bit was the neurotransmitter pathway diagram, which I really do love. One of our members of our team, Carrie, actually developed this and created this, which I love. And it's so helpful to actually see the pathways. Okay, so with the neurotransmitter pathway, this helps explain the tryptophan and kynurenine markers so that we can better understand the clinical significance of these markers and where they fall on the pathways. There also has the diagram for the catecholamine metabolites. So this also allows a nice little screenshot of those neurotransmitter breakdowns, but it does not take over for the complete representation of a neurotransmitter test. but it does help us with clinical pictures with organic acids. So again, another thing that we also love visuals. So having a visual for this to be able to explain not only to providers, but to patients, I think is going to knock it out of the park and make it that much better. Now that quintile reporting system. So the quintile reporting system essentially is very similar to the other toxin panels. So you're going to have your green zone in the middle, which would be your optimal levels. But then we also are going to have these little orange sections on either side, which actually shows that moderate or potential for issues. Then you have your red markers on the outside. So if something is way in the red, either high or low, that could actually mean an issue. And what I mean by that also is, let me show you. So we have the green in the middle. So that, and you can see this is actually a test plus a previous test. So you see that very light gray little teardrop, that's an old marker, and this is the new one. So that person was previously low in pyruvic acid or in that moderate low, and then now they're in the green. So we definitely always want to try to keep our patients in the green. But now what happens if they're in more of the yellow section? Well, this means that there could potentially be an issue. They're on the verge of going high, meaning potentially a problem. Not all the time that things are high or low can always be an issue, but with any type with organic acids, it can be a problem if something starts to trend in a certain direction, which is why the quintile reporting is the best for identifying this, or if something is too low. Okay, so we're definitely looking at trends. If something, say for instance, the person's high in all their fat metabolism. Well, is it a fat metabolism issue? Are they having issues with digesting and absorbing their fat? Are they on maybe a keto diet? And that's why maybe they're not in the red, but they're all trending high in the yellow. So looking at trends in organic acids is actually really important to understand the clinical picture for your patients. Now, we will actually be putting in markers for indirect markers. And what's going to happen is there will be a page with asterisks, and it will show the indirect markers, meaning that if it's elevated, it actually means a deficiency. So that's something to also keep in mind now, because that is something we'd always have to verbally explain to providers and patients, and it's not always very clear. So in this particular area, it will be clear that if there is an asterisk, there will be a red asterisk, and it will say this is an indirect marker, meaning that the level will actually, if it's high, actually mean a deficiency in that particular area. And that a lot of the time goes over with the nutrients in the glutathione. All right, so just to kind of take a quick peek at the environmental toxin guide, we have some really great information that's going to be coming out with the environmental toxin guide that, I think is just going to help every provider and patient out. It is almost like reading a small book, which is really great. And I think it's going to be super helpful for your patients to understand their environmental toxin. This has been a long-awaited, overdue guide that we are very excited to start sharing with everybody soon. It's right now being worked on, but we definitely have a lot of great information. And I just wanted to show a sneak peek here, like phthalates, something that, is plaguing all of our patients, and something that's kind of sometimes hard to explain what we're trying to do and how we're trying to detox our patients, or what are they coming in contact with? How do we get this out of their system? You're going to be able to give this to your patients. They're going to be able to read it and fully understand what they're dealing with. And it's really an amazing thing, just not only as an education piece for providers, showing you the conjugation pathways. How do we detox? We have a lot of going to be amazing resources on just detoxification and elimination pathways, which is going to be important anytime we're trying to get rid of or trying to eliminate any type of toxin in the human body. So we are so excited to be able to provide this for you guys. It's not ready yet. It's coming out very soon. So we'll let you guys know as soon as it comes out. It'll be uploaded in the portal, and it's going to just be an amazing guide. I've already seen it, and a lot of hard work and a lot of love went into that one. So I hope you guys really enjoyed our walkthrough for today.